Welcome. I'm Elinor Silverstein, and today I'm here with Fariya Doctor. And Faria is an absolutely fascinating woman in what topic has grabbed your interest and passion. And it's something that is so important for all of us because, you know, it's about breath. It's about breathing. And for years, my desire to help people with sleep apnea or fatigue first thing in the morning, exhaustion throughout the day, how Moshe Feldenkrais would talk about febrile breathing, right? The people breathe so shallow, so minimally, just enough to get away with living, but barely living and certainly not thriving. And I'd love to hear from you what caught your interest about this, how you went about it, and I'm sure how it's helping people.
Well, how did it get my interest? I think that goes way, way back with my own breathing difficulties. My own breathing difficulties and also health issues in the family. And so,
Like,
for example, when I was a teenager, I developed asthma. But I happened to develop asthma during the time when my mother was ill with lung cancer. And so what ended up happening is I was paying a lot of attention to her breathing, which was declining rapidly. She was struggling to breathe. And of course, when you're around people who are struggling to breathe, you end up struggling to breathe too sometimes, right? You resonate with their pain, their difficulty.
yeah.
And during that time, I developed asthma. So I developed my own health issues when she was dying. So my journey around breathing and understanding breath and why is it I was struggling so much with it really grew from there, I would say. And then, well, as I got into the Feldenkrais method, I got even more fascinated because we were learning all these really interesting lessons around breathing in ways that were sometimes quite strange and bizarre. And I couldn't quite understand what it is that I was learning, but I knew I felt better after. I knew that something got relieved. The tension dropped. I was breathing easier. I was feeling better. But I didn't understand, even though I had a biology background, I'd never learned the mechanism and the physiology of breathing in the way that I learned it when I took the Buteyko method course. So how did that happen? I ended up taking this course, funnily enough, during COVID, when everything shut down. I had to shut down my practice. And like a lot of people, we went to Zoom meetings and Zoom courses and started educating ourselves because we couldn't get out or do anything. And being fascinated by breathing already, I thought, well, why not learn another approach? And when I did, it sort of shone a light on a lot of the lessons that I had learned, and I understood it in a very different way. And it has improved my Feldenkrais practice because of it. So I guess that would be my sort of trajectory of learning and always being interested in slowly arming myself with more and more information along the way.
So do you find that people tell you, because this is something it's imperative for all of us to improve the quality of our breathing. And sometimes I think for me that well, when I had COVID, I was in the first round of COVID. So it was the really bad version. I had gone out once. And then the one time during the lockdown, I got sick, but it was like having really terrible pneumonia. I could not breathe. My body would exhale, but my body wouldn't inhale on its own. So I would wake up in the middle of the night not breathing. So I would wake up because I wasn't breathing at all. And so I would lie in bed and say, okay, breathe in with awareness, right? Through the nose, nasal passages, um, the nitric oxide receptor sites in the nasal passages and all that goodness. And then just let out of fatigue the exhale to go out. And then with effort to breathe in. And every so often, I'll tell you, it's what got me through it. But every so often, it revisits me where I'm fatigued and my breath is so shallow. And I've always been an excellent breather because I was a trained flautist. So, I mean, what embouchure, what breath, but even so, it got me. And so, and in that timing, you're putting out on Instagram beautiful posts every day, kind of reminding us. And I would look forward all
Oh,
the time of what you were posting, always, because, and it's so easy for people to find you on Facebook and Instagram. Not that I'm publicizing you at this moment, but it's inspiring. And, I think it helps our brain work better. I think it helps all of our organs to function better. And I think with a lot of people who have sleep apnea diagnoses, or not even a diagnosis, but clearly we're aware that it's sleep apnea. Sleep apnea isn't just because of obstruction. It can come from the cerebellum not functioning well. And I think in the way that you've incorporated it with Buteyko, with Feldenkrais, with your biology background, you're helping people to get their cerebellum with aging back online and better. Can you talk about that?
Well, I just wanted to comment on, thank goodness you had all that knowledge behind you when you were struggling with one of the worst, when it was really bad, when people was hitting people and knocking them down. And thank goodness you had that skill and that knowledge to be able to retrain yourself. So many people have no idea how far reaching breathing is. It's one of those elusive obviouses, right? It's obvious and it's in the background and we don't notice it half the time because it's supposed to be functioning as it should to keep us alive and healthy. But it sort of, when it starts getting affected and we don't pay attention, over time through illness and a variety of other things, it can get really destabilized. And I have talked to people who, oh, I'm a good breather. Oh yes, I'm an athlete. I'm a good breather. I don't breathe through my mouth at night. And I'm like, do you watch yourself breathing during the night? Do you have a video camera? How do you know this? Right? So people make all sorts of assumptions about the health of their breathing. And then they come to me and they're hyperventilating on the table. And so I slowly sort of get them to notice and feel. And when they start noticing and feeling, and that is when the shift starts happening. It's, oh, I didn't realize. And then we use some of the Buteyko method to help them reset their brain, the brain's ability to tolerate a different rhythm. So there's some training involved, but there's also awareness. When you bring the training and awareness together, you can reorganize how the receptors work in the brain to change the patterning in the breathing. And of course, the patterning of your voice, of your speech, of, everything. And you said it's far reaching. Yes, it's digestion, it's heart function, it's brain function, it's everything. So it's one of those obvious things that's always around, and it's so available to shift if we're aware of it. And it's so available to make a dramatic change in our health and well-being.
Wow.
And yeah, when people know this, then they go, wow, I
Wow.
can make a big difference in the way I'm sleeping, how I feel in the morning, how I function during the day. I had a client who, she just said to me, I know I breathe through my mouth at night because I know my mouth is dry and I'm drooling, but I don't know how to change that. And I said, well, have you tried putting a little bit of something lip to keep your lips together? Okay, I'll give it a try. And within 3 days, she calls me back and she says, I cannot believe the amount of energy I have now. I feel so much better. Big mood shift, big
Okay.
energy shift.
Okay, so then I have a question because in the nearly 40 years of me working with people and always focused on, not the breathing out of the mouth as much as breathing from the nose, not to be too specific in that way, but I have encountered people who said, I've never breathed out of my mouth. I've always been a mouth breather. If I try to breathe out of my nose, I suffocate. It's not because I'm stuffy, but because I literally will go into a panic attack because I'm used to, I guess, maybe this amount of breathing. And it's like physiologically, it's not developed in there. So, how do you take that person and offer them the little piece of tape in the middle of the night? How do they go about getting?
Well, for those people, I don't tell them to do it at nighttime. I tell them to do it for short periods of time during the day. So that they can be aware, but also they need to irrigate their nose. They need to get their nasal health working a little better because it's pretty unhealthy in there if they're not getting airflow through there. It's stagnant, right? And the receptors aren't working.
What does that mean, improving the health in
Of the
the
nasal passages. So there are a lot of receptors in the nose for all kinds of things, for smell. And of course, that smell goes throughout the brain for memory. It's also a safety mechanism. If you smell smoke, you respond, right? The other thing is nitric oxide receptors, which I remember you talking about nitric oxide years ago. And that is sort of that feel-good molecule that helps with dilation and improving blood flow and oxygen flow
and
and
blood?
and blood pressure. Yes. So there's a lot of things that happen that they're not getting through the mouth. The other thing that mouth breathing tends to cause is a more rapid breath and a very low carbon dioxide tolerance. So their body's not used to that, a certain level of blood carbon dioxide, and they become so intolerant to it that they feel as though they're suffocating. They feel like they're not getting enough oxygen. If you put a pulse oximeter on them, if you were to put this on their finger and show them, oh, your blood oxygen is 98%. You're not suffocating, but the sensation of suffocation happens when your carbon dioxide tolerance drops. And if you're a chronic mouth breather. So there's again, the health of the nasal passages, airflow through the nasal passages. They're probably inflamed, so the flow is really tight. It's like a tight tube. Once they get that healthy, their flow's much better, activates the diaphragm better, right? So if you're a mouth breather, diaphragm's not working that great. So there's a whole myriad of things that happens. But for those people who feel like they're suffocating, you need to help them as Feldenkrais practitioners with alignment of their head, right, over their spine, but also to slowly get them used to using their schnoz. They have to learn to use it, and they do it in short periods. So I'll tell them to take a little piece of tape, put it by their computer, stick it on 10 minutes, 20 minutes at a time so that they slowly get used to it. Or when they're driving, a little bit while they're driving.
Oh, it'll help them not yell at people too. No.
Yes,
Um,
yes. You
but
can't yell at people.
what kind of tape do you recommend?
I tend to use the micropore tape. So something like this. Can you see that?
Oh yes, Next Care. You can buy that in the drugstore
Yeah, and
or
it's
online.
paper, gentle paper tape. And I just put a little piece on my lips. I actually, even though I consider myself a really good nose breather, I still tape my mouth at night. And part of the reason is I notice not that I breathe through my mouth the whole night, but I might have parts of the night that I do. And I just notice that I feel better in the morning. I sleep deeper and I wake up feeling more refreshed. So, I don't know what's happening, but I'm sleeping better.
So aside from the taping, you teach awareness through movement lessons and breathing
Mhm.
lessons. So you're really teaching specific awareness of self, use of self, engagement. Can you give a 1 minute example of what something like that might be like?
Well, often,
Experience the moment.
yeah, so I'll often lead a person through, like, there are a number of Feldenkrais lessons where he really leads you down a path of internal discovery. So, for example, like when you feel the air traveling through your nostrils, can you feel the air? Can you feel the breeze on your upper lip? When you feel the air going in through the nostrils, do you sense it in the back of your throat? So it's sort of this highlighting sensation in places we don't really pay attention to. When you do that, then sometimes that opens up capacity to improve those places. So sometimes I might say, well, when you breathe through your nostrils, do you feel like there's enough space through the nasal passage? And if you feel like you would like more space, what if you gently thought about your cheekbones widening, or you have this beginning of a smile that comes over your face, and you might feel this widening through the cheekbones across your face and a widening in the back of the throat. So you can guide people to open places that they may not open. So that's sort of a kind of experiential thing that you could do for yourself, even when you're sitting or lying down, is creating this internal space. And when you widen like that, what happens when you draw the air into yourself? What do you feel in the upper lobes? Often people don't realize that their lung tissue is actually quite high in the chest. So I sometimes will guide people to
Oh,
sense those different places and through here. Or imagine they've got little tiny balloons in their armpits, or, so that they can discover new places for breath. So I'll be taking up people through that during the conference, during the lesson, talking a little bit about the physiology as I guide people through the lesson.
oh, Faria. Excellent. So, are you teaching classes and workshops or trainings online? And where can people reach you?
Well, they can reach me on my website, or through Facebook.
What's
Uh,
your website?
Website's my name, fariya.doctor.com.
And it's
And
Fariya
doc,
Doctor Doctor
yes,
dot com. Yeah.
I didn't. That's not a made up name. I was born with that name. Just for people to. They all often ask me, did you pick that name for your business? No, that's what I was born with. So that's how they can find me. And I actually have on my website a free lesson. There will be a pop-up, Find Your Happy Breath. And if you sign up for that, you'll get an audio lesson of one of the breathing lessons I did during COVID. And I'm on Instagram as Movement Detective. And those are good places to get a hold of me. Right now, currently, I'm not teaching any lessons at the moment. I am quite busy this summer, and I'm getting married in
Yeah.
September. So there's a lot going on.
Yes, yes, yes. You actually have a personal life. Let's breathe together. Wow, Faria, is there anything else you'd like to add to let people know?
No, thank you, Eleanor. I'm delighted. I'm delighted to be invited to the conference, and I really look forward to it.
Oh my
Look
gosh.
forward to it.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
so much.
we have an upcoming Feldenkrais Guild of North America conference, and those dates are September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd. And Fariya Doctor will be presenting her magnificent body of work that she has put together on breath and breathing. And it's something we all need. So, and you know where to find her at fariadoctor.com, and also Movement Detective, which is on Instagram. And you can find her on Facebook too.
Yeah, and yeah, and reach out if you have a question, message me. People have done that in the past. So,
I love that. Well,
yes.
bless you. Thank you. We have
Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you for all the work you're doing for the conference.
uh, thank you for what you're doing that helps make a difference in people's lives.